The letter felt heavier than it should have in my hands. MIT's crimson logo stared back at me from the envelope, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. 3 years ago, my own father had called me a disappointment for choosing community college over the state university he'd picked out for me. My mother had actually laughed when I told her my plans to transfer to MIT someday. Now, standing in our kitchen with trembling fingers, I was about to prove them all wrong. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Diane, and this story begins on the worst day of my senior year at Riverside High School. The college acceptance letters had been rolling in for weeks, and everyone was celebrating their futures. My best friend Jessica got into UCLA, my lab partner Marcus was headed to Northwestern, and even Sarah from my chemistry class had scored a full ride to Purdue. Me? I was staring at a rejection letter from UC Berkeley, the third one that month. I'd applied to 12 schools. 12. Each application fee had come out of my part-time job at the local grocery store, where I spent my afternoons scanning barcodes and bagging groceries just to afford the chance at a decent education. My parents, Aaron and Ruth, had made it clear that college was my responsibility. "If you want it bad enough, you'll figure out how to pay for it," my father had said over dinner one night, not even looking up from his plate. The financial aid. Packages from the schools that did accept me were a joke. Even with federal grants, I was looking at taking on over $100,000 in debt for a bachelor's degree. My parents' income was just high enough to disqualify me from most need-based aid, but low enough that they couldn't actually help me pay for college. Aaron worked as a regional sales manager for a paper supply company, and Ruth was a dental hygienist at a clinic downtown. They made decent money, but they'd made their priorities clear. Their retirement fund came first, not my education. "Maybe college isn't for everyone, honey," my mother had said when I showed her the financial aid letters. She was filing her nails at the kitchen table, not even pretending to be interested in the numbers that would determine my entire future. "Your cousin Brian did just fine with his construction business. Didn't need a fancy degree for that." That comment stung more than she probably intended. Brian had inherited his business from his father and primarily hired day laborers under the table. He wasn't exactly my role model for success, but my mother brought him up whenever she wanted to make a point about college being overrated. My father's reaction was worse. When I suggested that maybe they could co-sign a loan to help me afford a 4-year university, he actually laughed. "Diane, we're not about to go into debt for your dreams. If you're so smart, figure out a way to make it work without dragging us down with you." That's when Mrs. Patterson, my high school chemistry teacher, pulled me aside after class. She'd noticed I'd been distracted lately, staring out the window instead of taking notes on molecular structures. When I explained my situation, she didn't offer empty sympathy or false reassurances. Instead, she handed me a brochure for Riverside Community College. "Before you roll your eyes," she said, "hear me out. Their transfer program has an articulation agreement with MIT. Complete your general requirements here, maintain a high GPA, and you can transfer as a junior. You'll save about $60,000 and still end up with the same degree." I looked at the glossy brochure skeptically. Community college felt like giving up, like admitting I wasn't good enough for the real thing. But won't employers know I started at community college? Won't that hurt my chances? Mrs. Patterson shook her head. "Your diploma will say MIT, period. No one needs to know where you started. Some of the smartest students I've ever taught have taken this path. There's no shame in being strategic about your education." That evening, I brought up the community college idea at dinner. The reaction was immediate and brutal. "Community college?" Aaron nearly choked on his meatloaf. "That's not even real college, Diane. That's where people go when they can't cut it anywhere else. It's a smart financial decision," I tried to explain. "I can transfer to MIT after 2 years and save a fortune in tuition." Ruth started laughing. the kind of condescending laugh that made my cheeks burn with embarrassment. MIT? Oh, sweetheart. You need to be realistic. Kids like us don't go to places like MIT. That's for rich kids and genuine geniuses. I am a genuine genius, I shot back, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I have a 4.2 GPA and perfect scores on my SATs. Book smart isn't the same as real-world smart, Aaron said, pointing his fork at me for emphasis. You think, those MIT kids are going to respect someone who started at community college? You'll be marked as second class from day one. The conversation spiraled from there. They questioned my judgment, my work ethic, even my intelligence. According to them, I was being naive and unrealistic. Community college was for people who couldn't handle the real thing, and my plans to transfer to MIT were fantasy thinking that would only lead to disappointment. You're setting yourself up for failure, Ruth said finally, her voice cold and final. But if you're determined to waste 2 years of your life, don't come crying to us when reality hits. I went to bed that night feeling completely alone. My own parents had basically told me I wasn't smart enough for my dreams and that my backup plan was pathetic. But something Mrs. Patterson had said stuck with me. There was no shame in being strategic about my education. If anything, choosing the path that would get me to my goal with less debt seemed like the smartest decision I could make. The next morning, I walked into Riverside Community College and registered for fall classes. The campus was smaller than I'd expected, with aging buildings and a parking lot full of older students heading back to school after years in the workforce. It didn't look like the ivy-covered walls I'd imagined for my college experience, but it was a starting point. My class schedule was ambitious. Calculus 2, general chemistry with lab, English composition, and introduction to physics. I'd also signed up for a part-time work-study position in the chemistry lab to help pay for books and supplies. The plan was simple. Excel in every class, build relationships with professors who could write strong recommendation letters, and research opportunities to distinguish myself for transfer applications. The first day of classes was humbling. My calculus professor, Dr. Martinez, didn't coddle anyone. He assigned homework that took me 3 hours to complete and made it clear that this was a weed-out course designed to separate serious students from those just going through the motions. My chemistry professor, Dr. Kim, was even more demanding. She expected us to arrive prepared for every lab session and had zero tolerance for students who hadn't read the assignments. But I thrived in that environment. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by professors who treated education like it mattered, who pushed their students to think critically and work harder than they thought possible. The fact that I was paying for these classes with my own money made every lecture feel precious, every assignment an investment in my future. My parents' reaction to my enthusiasm was predictably dismissive. When I tried to share what I was learning in chemistry, Aaron would change the subject. When I mentioned getting an A on my first calculus exam, Ruth would make some comment about how easy community college must be compared to real universities. The worst part was family gatherings. My cousins were all away at four-year universities, sending home photos from football games and fraternity parties. When relatives asked about my school, the adults would exchange knowing looks, as if I'd already failed at life before it had really begun. Diane's taking the practical approach, my mother would say, her tone suggesting that practical was code for settling for less. My Uncle Tom was particularly brutal. Community college, huh? Well, at least you'll graduate without debt. That's something, I guess. Not everyone needs to aim high. These comments fueled my determination instead of discouraging me. Every condescending remark, every dismissive laugh became motivation to prove them wrong. I started staying after class to ask professors additional questions, joined the chemistry club, and volunteered for every research opportunity available. Dr. Kim noticed my dedication and offered me a position as a teaching assistant for the introductory chemistry lab. It was my first real taste of academic life beyond just taking classes. I helped first-semester students understand molecular structures, explained lab procedures, and graded assignments. The experience confirmed what I'd suspected. I loved chemistry, and I was good at teaching it. "You have a gift for making complex concepts accessible," Dr. Kim told me after I'd helped a struggling student finally understand stoichiometry. "That's a rare skill, especially for someone your age." The teaching assistant position also came with something invaluable: a closer relationship with a professor who could speak to my abilities and potential. Dr. Kim had completed her PhD at Harvard and maintained connections throughout the academic world. When I mentioned my plans to transfer to MIT, she didn't laugh or tell me to be more realistic. "MIT's chemistry program is incredibly competitive," she said thoughtfully. "But if you're serious about this path, there are things we can do to strengthen your application. Have you considered undergraduate research?" That conversation changed everything. Dr. Kim introduced me to Dr. Sarah Chen, a visiting researcher from Berkeley who was conducting polymer research in collaboration with the community college. Dr. Chen was looking for an undergraduate assistant, someone who could commit significant hours to lab work in exchange for hands-on research experience. The research position meant longer days and less sleep, but it also meant real scientific work. I wasn't just memorizing textbook concepts anymore. I was designing experiments, analyzing data, and contributing to research that might eventually be published. When Dr. Chen praised my troubleshooting skills after I'd solved a persistent contamination problem that had been plaguing the lab for weeks, I felt like a real scientist for the first time. My parents remained unimpressed. When I tried to explain the significance of the research opportunity, Erin cut me off mid-sentence. "That's nice, honey, but what's it actually worth? Are they paying you?" The stipend was modest, barely enough to cover gas money and lab supplies, but the experience was priceless. I was building the kind of resume that would set me apart from other transfer applicants, developing skills that couldn't be taught in a classroom, and proving to myself that I belonged in high-level academic research. As my first year at community college progressed, the gap between my family's expectations and my actual achievements grew wider. I'd made the dean's list both semesters, been accepted into the honors program, and received recognition for my research contributions. But at home, these accomplishments were met with polite indifference at best, outright skepticism at worst. "Don't get too big for your britches," Ruth warned, when I mentioned being invited to present my research at a regional conference. "Community college honors don't mean much in the real world." Her words stung, but they also clarified something important for me. I wasn't just working toward a degree anymore. I was working toward independence from people who couldn't see my potential, including my own family. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Second year at Riverside Community College brought opportunities I'd never imagined. Dr. Chen's polymer research had evolved into something groundbreaking. We were developing biodegradable plastics that could revolutionize packaging industries. My role had expanded from basic lab assistance to co-authoring research papers and managing experimental protocols. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning in October. I'd been running variations on a synthesis reaction for weeks, adjusting temperature and catalyst ratios. Previous attempts had produced polymers that were either too brittle or took decades to decompose. But batch number 47 was different. The material had perfect flexibility and began breaking down within months when exposed to specific bacterial enzymes. "Diane, look at these microscopy results," Dr. Chen called from her computer screen. The polymer chains showed exactly the molecular structure we'd been trying to achieve. This could be the solution we've been searching for. Within days, our research attracted attention from major universities. Dr. Chen received calls from MIT, Stanford, and Caltech, all wanting to know more about the undergraduate student who'd helped develop this revolutionary material. My name, appeared as the second author on the paper submitted to the Journal of Polymer Science. The recognition opened doors I hadn't expected. Professor Janet Morrison from MIT's Department of Chemical Engineering reached out personally. She'd read our paper and wanted to discuss my transfer application over a video call. My hand shook as I answered her call from the community college library's quiet study room. "Your research methodology shows remarkable sophistication for an undergraduate student," Professor Morrison said, her voice warm but professional. "Tell me about your long-term goals in chemical engineering." For 45 minutes, we discussed polymer chemistry, sustainable materials, and my vision for using science to solve environmental problems. She asked pointed questions about my research process, my understanding of molecular dynamics, and my experience with advanced laboratory techniques. Every answer seemed to impress her further. "I'm going to be direct with you, Diane," she said finally. MIT receives thousands of transfer applications each year. Most are from students at prestigious four-year universities with perfect grades and impressive extracurriculars. But your research experience is exactly what we're looking for: original thinking, practical application, and real contribution to scientific knowledge. After the call ended, I sat in the library for an hour, processing what had just happened. A professor from MIT had essentially told me I was the kind of student they wanted. The path that my family had mocked was leading exactly where I'd hoped it would. But the application process itself was grueling. MIT required detailed essays, multiple recommendation letters, official transcripts, and standardized test scores. The application fee alone was more than I made in a week at my campus job. I applied for fee waivers and spent countless hours crafting essays that would distinguish me from thousands of other applicants. My recommendations were crucial. Dr. Kim wrote extensively about my teaching abilities and academic performance. Dr. Chen focused on my research contributions and potential for graduate-level work. Mrs. Patterson, my former high school teacher, provided perspective on my growth and determination. Each letter painted a picture of a student who'd maximized every opportunity despite limited resources. The most challenging part was the personal statement. How do you explain choosing community college without sounding like you're making excuses? How do you frame financial constraints as strategic thinking? I wrote 17 drafts before settling on an essay that honestly described my path while emphasizing the unique advantages it had given me. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family remained strained. Aaron had been promoted to regional director at his company, and Ruth had started working at a more upscale dental practice. Their increased income made their earlier refusal to help with college expenses feel even more pointed. They were perfectly capable of supporting my education. They'd simply chosen not to. "How's your little college going?" Aaron asked during Thanksgiving dinner, his tone suggesting amusement rather than genuine interest. "I'm applying to transfer to MIT," I said quietly, cutting into my turkey. The silence that followed was deafening. My cousin Jake, home from his sophomore year at State, nearly choked on his drink. My Aunt Linda looked confused, as if she'd misheard me. "MIT?" Ruth repeated slowly. "As in Massachusetts Institute of Technology?" "Yes. I've been doing research in polymer chemistry, and my work has attracted attention from their faculty." Uncle Tom leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Honey, MIT doesn't take community college transfers. That's not how the world works." "Actually, they do. I've spoken with professors there who are interested in my research." The conversation that followed was brutal. My family seemed personally offended by my ambitions, as if my success would somehow diminish their own accomplishments. They questioned everything: my grades, my research, even my sanity for thinking I could compete with real university students. "You're setting yourself up for crushing disappointment," Ruth said, her voice mixing concern with condescension. "These schools lead people on just to collect application fees. They're not actually going to accept someone from community college. Especially not someone whose parents work regular jobs," Aaron added. "MIT is for trust fund kids and genuine prodigies." Kids like us don't get those opportunities. Their words cut deep because part of me feared they might be right. Despite Professor Morrison's encouragement and my research success, imposter syndrome crept in during quiet moments. Was I deluding myself? Did I really belong at an elite institution? Those doubts drove me to work even harder. I enrolled in advanced calculus and organic chemistry courses, typically taken by junior-level students. I spent winter break in the lab, perfecting techniques and gathering additional data for our research. I studied for the GRE and achieved scores in the 95th percentile. Spring semester brought the final push. Transfer applications were due in March, and I was juggling coursework, research responsibilities, and my campus job. Some days I survived on 3 hours of sleep and vending. Machine coffee. My grades never slipped, but my social life became non-existent. The hardest part was maintaining hope while preparing for rejection. MIT's transfer acceptance rate was less than 2%. Even with strong research credentials and stellar grades, the odds were overwhelmingly against me. I applied to backup schools, UC Berkeley, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, but MIT remained my first choice. In April, I defended my research project before a panel of chemistry professors from nearby universities. The presentation went flawlessly. I explained our synthesis methods, discussed the environmental implications of biodegradable polymers, and answered technical questions with confidence. Several professors approached afterward to discuss potential graduate school opportunities. "You present like a graduate student," commented Dr. Williams from State University. "Your research depth is impressive for someone at any level, let alone an undergraduate." But the highest praise came from Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a visiting professor from MIT who'd attended the presentation. She pulled me aside afterward, her expression serious. "I wanted to see your work firsthand before the admissions committee makes their final decisions," she said quietly. "Your application has generated significant discussion among our faculty. Your research quality is exceptional. But what really impressed us is your resourcefulness. You've accomplished more with limited resources than most students do with every advantage." My heart pounded. "Does that mean—" "I can't make any promises," she said carefully. "But I can tell you that your application is being seriously considered. The decision letters should arrive within the next few weeks." Those few weeks felt like months. Every day I checked the mail obsessively, analyzing postal patterns and delivery schedules. I created backup plans for backup plans, researching community colleges in Massachusetts where I could complete my degree if MIT accepted me, but I couldn't afford to attend. The financial aspect remained terrifying. Even with MIT's generous financial aid, I was looking at significant expenses. Room and board in Cambridge cost more than my family's monthly mortgage. I applied for every scholarship I could find, wrote essays for private foundations, and researched work-study opportunities. My parents remained skeptical throughout the waiting period. When I mentioned possibly needing to move to Massachusetts, Ruth actually laughed. "You're planning your whole life around something that's never going to happen. MIT doesn't take people like you, Diane. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can make realistic plans for your future." Their lack of faith became fuel for my determination. Every dismissive comment, every condescending smile reminded me why I needed to succeed. This wasn't just about education anymore. It was about proving that intelligence and hard work could overcome circumstances, that ambitious dreams weren't reserved for people born into privilege. The letter arrived on a Wednesday in May. I recognized MIT's logo immediately, but the envelope felt too thin for good news. Acceptance packages were supposed to be thick, full of enrollment information and congratulatory materials. This looked like a standard rejection letter. I carried it to my bedroom, hands trembling slightly. After 2 years of relentless work, countless sacrifices, and unwavering focus, my future was contained in this single envelope. Whatever it said would determine whether I'd vindicated my choices or confirmed my family's doubts about my capabilities. The moment of truth had finally arrived. I tore open the envelope with surgical precision, afraid that rushing might somehow change the contents. The MIT letterhead stared back at me, official and intimidating. My eyes scanned quickly past the formal address and date, searching for the words that would determine my fate. Dear Diane, congratulations. It is my pleasure to inform you that you have been accepted to MIT as a transfer student in the Department of Chemical Engineering. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I read the sentence 3 more times before it sank in completely. MIT had accepted me. Not only that, but they'd offered a financial aid package that would cover 80% of my expenses. The prestigious institution that my family insisted didn't take people like me had just invited me to join their ranks. I ran downstairs clutching the letter, my heart hammering against my ribs. Erin was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table while Ruth prepared her lunch for work. They looked up as I burst into the room, probably expecting another community college achievement they could politely dismiss. I got in, I said breathlessly, holding up the letter. MIT accepted me. The newspaper slipped from Erin's hands. Ruth froze with her sandwich halfway to her mouth. For several seconds, neither of them spoke or moved. They just stared at me, as if I'd announced I was moving to Mars. That's not possible, Ruth whispered finally. I handed her the letter with trembling fingers. She read it slowly, her lips moving silently as she processed each word. Erin leaned over her shoulder, his expression shifting from disbelief to shock to something I couldn't quite identify. This is real? Erin asked, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. They actually accepted you? Full acceptance as a junior transfer student, I confirmed. With financial aid. I start in September. The silence stretched uncomfortably. This was the moment I'd imagined for 2 years, proving my family wrong, showing them that their daughter was capable of extraordinary things. But their reactions weren't what I'd expected. Instead of apologizing for their doubts or celebrating my success, they seemed almost stunned into paralysis. How much will it cost? Ruth asked finally, her practical nature reasserting itself. Less than the state schools I applied to originally. MIT's financial aid program is incredibly generous. But you'll be so far away, she said, and for the first time, I heard genuine emotion in her voice. Not pride or excitement, but something that sounded almost like loss. The next few days were surreal. Word spread quickly through our small town. Mrs. Patterson called to congratulate me, barely able to contain her excitement. Dr. Kim and Dr. Chen took me out to dinner to celebrate, both beaming with pride at their former student's achievement. The local newspaper even wanted to do a story about the community college student who'd gotten into MIT. But the reactions that mattered most remained complicated. My parents seemed to be processing the news in slow motion, as if they couldn't quite reconcile the daughter they'd underestimated with the young woman MIT had deemed worthy of admission. Uncle Tom was the first family member to voice what others were probably thinking. During a family barbecue the weekend after my acceptance, he pulled me aside near the grill. "So you really showed us all up, didn't you?" he said, flipping burgers with more force than necessary. I wasn't trying to show anyone up, I replied carefully. I was just pursuing my goals. Right. Your goals. His tone carried an edge I'd never heard before. Must feel pretty good, being the smartest one in the family now. The accusations stung because it revealed the underlying tension my success had created. My achievement wasn't just about me anymore. It had become a mirror reflecting everyone else's choices and limitations. Instead of celebrating my acceptance to MIT, some family members seemed to view it as an indictment of their own lives. My cousin Jake was more direct. "So what? You think you're better than us now? Too good for the family business? Too good for state school?" "That's not what this is about," I said firmly. I found a path that worked for me. That doesn't diminish anyone else's choices. But even as I said the words, I realized that some family members would always see my success as a criticism of their decisions. My parents' refusal to support my education, my relatives' dismissal of my ambitions, their insistence that people like us didn't belong at elite institutions, my MIT acceptance challenged all of those assumptions. The most painful conversation came with Ruth a few weeks later. She'd been distant since my acceptance, polite but reserved in a way that felt like punishment for succeeding beyond her expectations. "I need you to understand something," she said one evening as we cleaned up after dinner. "Your father and I did the best we could with what we had. We didn't have college degrees ourselves, and we didn't know how to guide you through that world. I know that," I said gently. "I never expected you to have all the answers." "But we did expect you to fail," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "When you talked about MIT, it sounded so impossible that we thought we were protecting you from disappointment. We thought we were being realistic." The honesty was devastating and healing at the same time. For 2 years, I'd interpreted their lack of support as a lack of faith in my abilities. But Ruth was revealing something more complex. They genuinely believed that dreams like mine were impossible for people in our circumstances, and they'd tried to shield me from what they saw as inevitable heartbreak. "I should have believed in you," she continued, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "You were brilliant and determined, and instead of encouraging you, I tried to make you settle for less because I was afraid of watching you get hurt." Aaron joined the conversation, his own guilt written across his face. "We measured your possibilities against our own limitations," he said quietly. "That was our mistake, not yours." The admission didn't erase the years of discouragement, but it provided context that helped me understand their behavior. They hadn't been malicious, they'd been afraid. Their own experiences had taught them that extraordinary opportunities were reserved for other people, and they'd projected those limitations onto me. As summer progressed, the practical reality of attending MIT began to set in. I needed everything from winter clothes suitable for Boston weather to laboratory equipment for advanced coursework. The financial aid covered tuition and most living expenses, but the smaller costs added up quickly. My parents surprised me by insisting on helping with these preparations. Aaron drove me to Boston for orientation weekend, despite his obvious discomfort with the campus environment. Ruth researched dormitory requirements and helped me shop for essentials, approaching the task with the same thoroughness she brought to everything else. The transformation in their attitudes was gradual but unmistakable. They began mentioning my MIT acceptance to friends and neighbors, their voices carrying a pride they'd never shown before. Ruth started collecting newspaper clippings and articles about MIT, creating a scrapbook of information about the institution her daughter would attend. But perhaps the most significant change came during my final week at home. Aaron knocked on my bedroom door one evening, holding a wrapped package. "This is for you," he said awkwardly, sitting on the edge of my bed. "For MIT." Inside the package was a high-end scientific calculator, the kind used by professional engineers and researchers. It must have cost several $100s, more than my parents had ever spent on my education. "Dad, this is too expensive," I protested. "No," he said firmly. "It's not nearly enough. You've earned this and so much more. I want you to know that we're proud of you. We should have said that a long time ago." The calculator came with something even more valuable, a handwritten note from both parents. Ruth's careful cursive and Aaron's blocky printing filled a full page with apologies, encouragement, and expressions of love that they'd struggled to voice directly. "We were wrong to doubt you," the note read. "You saw possibilities that we couldn't imagine, and you had the courage to pursue them despite our lack of support. You're going to do incredible things at MIT, and we can't wait to see what you accomplish. We love you and we believe in you. We should have said both of those things much sooner." As I packed my belongings for the move to Cambridge, I reflected, on the unexpected turn my family relationships had taken. My MIT acceptance had initially created distance and tension, forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about dreams, limitations, and missed opportunities. But ultimately, it had also created space for honesty, growth, and a deeper understanding of the fears that had shaped their earlier responses. The girl who'd been told she wasn't smart enough for elite education was about to begin her junior year at one of the world's most prestigious technical institutions. More importantly, she was leaving home with her family's genuine support for the first time in her academic career. Cambridge in September felt like stepping into another universe. The red brick buildings of MIT stretched along the Charles River, their Gothic architecture intimidating and inspiring in equal measure. Students hurried between classes carrying laptops and textbooks, speaking in casual conversation about quantum mechanics and artificial intelligence as if discussing the weather. My dormitory room in McCormick Hall was smaller than my bedroom, at home, but it overlooked the campus courtyard where Nobel Prize winners had once walked. My roommate, Sarah Chen, was a junior majoring in electrical engineering who'd transferred from Stanford. She greeted me with genuine warmth and immediately began sharing insider knowledge about professors, study groups, and campus resources. Don't let anyone intimidate you during the first few weeks, she advised as we arranged our shared living space. Everyone here is brilliant, but brilliance comes in different packages. Some people are good at making others feel inferior, but that doesn't mean they're actually smarter than you. Her words proved prophetic during my first organic chemistry class. Professor Williams began the semester by announcing that historically, 30% of students dropped his course by midterm. He scanned the lecture hall with the confidence of someone who'd broken countless academic dreams. This class separates those who belong at MIT from those who merely wish they belonged, he declared. If you're not prepared to dedicate 20 hours per week to organic chemistry alone, I suggest you reconsider your academic priorities. The student sitting next to me, a junior named Marcus from Phillips Exeter Academy, leaned over with a smirk. Transfer students usually struggle with the pace here. The coursework is pretty intense compared to... Where did you transfer from? Riverside Community College, I replied without hesitation. His expression shifted from mild interest to barely concealed surprise. Community college? Wow, that's unusual. How did you even get accepted here? The question wasn't malicious, but it carried assumptions that I'd encounter repeatedly during my first semester. Some students seemed genuinely curious about my unconventional path, while others appeared to view my presence as evidence that MIT's admission standards were declining. But my community college experience had prepared me for exactly this environment. While other students were adjusting to college-level expectations, I'd already mastered advanced study techniques, time management, and the art of maximizing professor interactions. My research background with Dr. Chen gave me laboratory skills that many students were still developing. The organic chemistry course that intimidated so many students felt manageable because I'd already encountered similar material during my polymer research. Professor Williams's legendary difficulty seemed less daunting when you'd spent months troubleshooting synthetic reactions that textbooks claimed were straightforward. My first major breakthrough came during a physical chemistry problem set that had stumped most of the class. The assignment involved calculating molecular dynamics for complex polymer systems, exactly the type of work I'd been doing for over a year. While classmates struggled with basic concepts, I was able to apply advanced modeling techniques I'd learned during my research. Diane, could you walk the class through your approach to Problem 7? Professor Martinez asked during the next lecture. I stood and explained my methodology, using thermodynamic principles and statistical mechanics to solve what others had seen as an impossible equation. The room was silent as I worked through the calculations on the whiteboard, demonstrating concepts that weren't covered until graduate-level courses. Excellent work, Professor Martinez said when I finished. Your solution shows a graduate-level understanding of molecular behavior. Where did you develop these skills? Undergraduate research at my previous institution, I replied simply. After class, several students approached me with new interest. Marcus, who'd questioned my community college background weeks earlier, looked genuinely impressed. That was incredible. I've never seen anyone solve those equations so elegantly. Would you be interested in forming a study group? The invitation marked a turning point in my MIT experience. Word spread quickly about the transfer student who'd mastered advanced concepts that challenged even the most prepared students. My study group grew from 3 members to 12 within a month, with students seeking my help on everything from reaction mechanisms to research methodology. My professors began treating me differently as well. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who'd observed my presentation at community college, invited me to join her research group focused on sustainable materials engineering. The project involved developing next-generation solar cell components using environmentally friendly synthesis methods. Your polymer background makes you perfect for this research, she explained during our first meeting. We're trying to create organic photovoltaic materials that maintain efficiency while being completely biodegradable. It's exactly the intersection of your expertise. Working in Dr. Walsh's lab felt like coming home. The equipment was more sophisticated than anything I'd used at community college, but the fundamental principles remained the same. Within weeks, I was leading experiments and proposing novel synthetic approaches that impressed the graduate students on our team. The research began consuming my free time in the best possible way. Late nights in the lab became opportunities to explore cutting-edge science with some of the brightest minds in the field. My synthesis techniques, refined through months of community college research, proved invaluable for creating the precise molecular structures our solar cell project required. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family continued evolving. Aaron called every Sunday, his conversations now filled with genuine interest in my coursework and research. Ruth sent care packages containing homemade cookies and local newspapers, featuring articles about renewable energy that she thought might interest me. The most surprising development came from my extended family. Uncle Tom, who'd made snide comments about my MIT acceptance, began introducing me as my niece, the MIT student, at social gatherings. Cousins who'd dismissed my community college choice now asked for advice about their own educational decisions. "Should have listened to you about community college," my cousin Jake admitted during Thanksgiving break. "I'm drowning in debt at state, and you're getting the same quality education for half the cost." But success at MIT also brought unexpected challenges. The academic pressure was relentless, with problem sets that took entire weekends to complete, and exams that tested not just knowledge but creative problem-solving under extreme time constraints. Some nights, I survived on 3 hours of sleep and determination alone. The social dynamics proved equally complex. While many students were welcoming and collaborative, others seemed threatened by my unconventional background and rapid academic success. A few made pointed comments about diversity admits and questioned whether I truly belonged at such an elite institution. These moments stung, but they also motivated me to work even harder. Every condescending remark became fuel for late-night study sessions. Every questioning glance during seminars pushed me to speak up more confidently about my research. The validation came through measurable achievements. My first semester grades placed me in the top 10% of my class. My research with Dr. Walsh's group resulted in preliminary findings that showed promise for commercial application. Most importantly, I'd proven to myself that I could thrive in an environment specifically designed to challenge the most capable students. By December, my transformation from community college transfer to MIT success story was complete. Professors sought my input on research directions. Classmates competed for spots in my study groups. Graduate students treated me as a peer rather than an undergraduate they needed to mentor. The girl who'd been told she wasn't smart enough for elite education had not only survived at MIT, she was excelling beyond her wildest expectations. But the real test of her success would come during the spring semester, when advanced coursework and intensive research would push her abilities to their absolute limits. As I prepared for winter break, I reflected on the incredible journey from community college rejection to MIT achievement. The path had been unconventional, sometimes lonely, and always challenging. But it had also been exactly what I needed to develop the skills, confidence, and determination that now defined my academic identity. The best part wasn't proving my doubters wrong. It was discovering possibilities I'd never imagined for myself. Spring. Semester brought an opportunity that would change everything. Dr. Walsh pulled me aside after a particularly successful lab session where I'd synthesized a new organic semiconductor that showed unprecedented efficiency ratings. "There's something I need to discuss with you," she said, her tone unusually serious. "The Department of Energy is funding a major research initiative on next-generation renewable energy technologies. They're looking for exceptional undergraduate researchers to join multi-institutional teams led by MIT, Stanford, and Berkeley." My heart raced as she continued. "Based on your work this year, I'm recommending you for the program. If selected, you'd spend the summer at our partner laboratory in Silicon Valley, working directly with industry leaders and venture capitalists. This isn't just academic research. It's technology with immediate commercial potential." The application process was intense. Beyond academic transcripts and research portfolios, candidates needed to present original research proposals that could realistically contribute to solving global energy challenges. I spent 3 weeks developing a proposal for bio-inspired solar cells that mimicked photosynthetic processes in plants. The competition included undergraduate students from Harvard, Stanford, Caltech, and other elite institutions. Most had been conducting research since their freshman year and came from families with deep scientific backgrounds. During the virtual interviews, I listened to candidates casually mention their parents' Nobel Prizes or their summer internships at NASA. When my turn came, the panel of professors and industry experts asked pointed questions about my unconventional background. "Your research experience is impressive, but it's quite different from your peers," noted Dr. Rebecca Martinez from Berkeley. "How do you think your community college experience has prepared you for this level of research collaboration?" Instead of apologizing for my different path, I used the question as an opportunity to highlight my unique perspective. Community college taught me to maximize limited resources and find creative solutions to complex problems. When you're working with basic equipment and tight budgets, you develop troubleshooting skills and innovative thinking that prove invaluable in cutting-edge research. The response seemed to resonate with the panel. Dr. James Peterson from the Department of Energy leaned forward with interest. "Can you give us a specific example of how resource limitations led to innovation in your work?" I described the polymer research at Riverside, explaining how equipment constraints had forced me to develop novel synthesis techniques that ultimately proved superior to standard methods. The story illustrated resourcefulness, adaptability, and the ability to turn disadvantages into advantages. 2 weeks later, the acceptance email arrived. Out of nearly 500 applicants nationwide, I was one of only 15 students selected for the program. The notification included travel arrangements to California, housing assignments, and a research stipend that would cover my expenses for the entire summer. My parents' reaction was extraordinary. Aaron actually took the day off work to celebrate, and Ruth called everyone in our extended family to share the news. The daughter they'd once told to be realistic about her ambitions was now part of an elite national research program focused on solving global energy challenges. "I keep thinking about that day you told us about community college," Ruth admitted during a quiet moment. "We were so worried you were limiting yourself, but you were actually taking the smartest possible path to exactly where you wanted to go." The Silicon Valley Research Facility was unlike anything I'd experienced. Located in Palo Alto, the laboratory housed equipment worth millions of dollars and attracted researchers from around the world. My project involved developing organic solar cells that could be printed like newspapers, making renewable energy accessible in developing countries. My research partner was David Kim, a graduate student from Stanford who'd published papers in Science and Nature before his 25th birthday. Initially, he seemed skeptical about working with an undergraduate, especially one from a community college background. "No offense," he said during our first meeting, "but this project requires a pretty advanced understanding of molecular electronics. Have you worked with conjugated polymers before?" "Extensively," I replied, pulling up my research portfolio. "I've synthesized over 50 different polymer structures and characterized their electronic properties using spectroscopy and electrochemical analysis." His attitude shifted immediately as he reviewed my work. "This is graduate-level research. How did you develop these skills at community college?" Over the following weeks, David became both a collaborator and mentor. He introduced me to venture capitalists who were funding renewable energy startups, connected me with industry researchers developing commercial applications, and helped me understand how academic research translated into real-world solutions. The breakthrough came in July. I'd been experimenting with a new molecular structure that combined the light harvesting efficiency of organic compounds with the stability of inorganic materials. Previous attempts had failed because the hybrid materials degraded quickly when exposed to sunlight. But my approach was different. Instead of trying to combine organic and inorganic components directly, I created a layered structure that protected the organic materials while allowing efficient charge transfer. The result was a solar cell that maintained 90% efficiency after 1,000 hours of continuous illumination, a stability that had never been achieved with organic photovoltaics. "This is phenomenal," Dr. Walsh said during our weekly video conference. "Your stability results are better than anything published in the literature. We need to fast-track this for patent application and journal submission." The commercial implications were enormous. Traditional solar panels required expensive manufacturing processes and rigid installation methods. My printable solar cells could be produced using existing printing infrastructure and applied to flexible surfaces like clothing, building materials, or vehicle bodies. Within days, word spread through the research community. Venture capital firms requested meetings to discuss licensing agreements. Major corporations inquired about exclusive development rights. My summer research project has become a technology with the potential to revolutionize how society generates renewable energy. The media attention was overwhelming. MIT's communications department arranged interviews with science journalists, and my research appeared in articles about breakthrough renewable energy technologies. The community college student who'd been told her dreams were unrealistic was now being featured in national publications as an innovator who might help solve climate change. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Patterson, my high school chemistry teacher who'd first suggested community college, sent a handwritten letter after seeing my research featured in Scientific American. "I always knew you were special," she wrote, "but watching you prove that intelligence and determination can overcome any obstacle has been the highlight of my teaching career. You've shown countless students that unconventional paths can lead to extraordinary destinations." As summer ended and I prepared to return to MIT for my senior year, I reflected on the incredible journey from community college rejection to national research recognition. The path had been challenging, often lonely, and frequently misunderstood by people who couldn't see beyond traditional educational hierarchies. But every obstacle has become an opportunity for growth. The financial constraints that forced me to choose community college had led to research experiences unavailable at four-year universities. The family doubt that motivated my initial determination had evolved into unwavering support for my ambitions. The skepticism from MIT classmates had pushed me to excel beyond even my own expectations. My senior year would bring new challenges: graduate school applications, advanced coursework, and the pressure to continue building on my research success. But I was no longer the uncertain teenager who'd worried about fitting in at an elite institution. I was a researcher with published papers, patent applications, and the confidence that comes from proving yourself in the most demanding academic environment in the world. The girl who'd started at community college was about to graduate from MIT with opportunities her family had never imagined possible. But more importantly, she'd learned that success isn't determined by where you start. It's determined by how intelligently and persistently you pursue where you want to go. Senior year at MIT arrived with an avalanche of opportunities that would have seemed impossible just 3 years earlier. My solar cell research had generated interest from graduate programs across the country, each offering full funding and the chance to continue developing technologies that could reshape the renewable energy industry. The first call came from Professor Michael Chen at Stanford, whose lab focused on commercializing next-generation photovoltaics. "Your printable solar cell work is exactly the breakthrough we've been waiting for," he explained during our video conference. "I'd like to offer you a position in our PhD program with full funding, plus equity in any companies we spin off from. Your research." Similar offers followed from Berkeley, Harvard, and Caltech. Each program came with distinct advantages: access to venture capital networks, partnerships with major corporations, or connections to government research initiatives. The abundance of choices felt surreal for someone who'd once worried about affording community college textbooks. But the most unexpected opportunity came from an email that arrived on a Tuesday morning in October. The message was from Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Chief Technology Officer at SolarTech Industries, one of the largest renewable energy companies in the world. "We've been following your research with great interest," she wrote. "Rather than pursuing graduate school immediately, would you consider joining our R&D division as a lead researcher? We're prepared to offer a starting salary of $180,000, full benefits, and equity options that could be worth millions if your technology reaches commercial scale." The job offer represented financial security beyond anything my family had experienced. My father's salary as a regional director was less than half what SolarTech was proposing to pay me straight out of college. The position would allow me to buy a house, support my parents if needed, and never worry about student loans or financial constraints again. Yet something about accepting the immediate financial reward felt incomplete. During late-night conversations with my roommate Sarah, I worked through the decision that would determine my next decade. "You could always go back to school later," she pointed out. "Industry experience might actually make you a stronger PhD candidate eventually." "But what if I get comfortable with the salary and never go back?" I countered. "Graduate school isn't just about the degree. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's scientifically possible." The internal debate continued for weeks. I created detailed spreadsheets comparing financial outcomes, research opportunities, and long-term career trajectories. Every analysis pointed toward different conclusions depending on which factors I prioritized. The clarity came during a research seminar featuring Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who'd become both mentor and friend during my time at MIT. Her presentation focused on emerging technologies that could democratize renewable energy access globally, making clean power available to communities that traditional infrastructure couldn't reach. "The next decade will determine whether renewable energy remains a luxury for wealthy nations or becomes a fundamental human right," she argued. "The researchers in this room have the knowledge and creativity to tip that balance toward universal access." After the seminar, Dr. Walsh and I discussed my career decision over coffee in the faculty lounge. "Industry positions offer immediate impact and financial rewards," she acknowledged. "But PhD research allows you to pursue questions that companies consider too risky or long-term. Your printable solar cell work is just the beginning. There are fundamental scientific problems that only academic research can address." She paused, studying my expression carefully. "What drives you, Diane? Is it solving the energy crisis, or is it financial security? Both are valid motivations, but they lead to different paths." The question crystallized everything I'd been struggling to articulate. My journey from community college to MIT hadn't been motivated by money. It had been driven by curiosity, the desire to solve meaningful problems, and the need to prove that intelligence and determination could overcome any obstacle. That evening, I called my parents to discuss the decision. Their response surprised me. "Honey, we've watched you choose the harder path every single time," Aaron said. Community, college when you could have taken loans for a 4-year school, MIT when you could have stayed comfortable at Riverside. Now you're debating between guaranteed money and uncertain research. But every time you've chosen challenge over comfort, you've ended up better off. "We're not worried about your financial future anymore," Ruth added. "You've proven you can create opportunities wherever you go. Choose the path that excites you most, not the one that pays the most." Their confidence in my judgment felt like the final piece of a puzzle that had taken years to complete. The parents who'd once urged me to be realistic about my ambitions were now encouraging me to take the biggest risk of my academic career. I declined the solar tech offer and accepted a position in Stanford's PhD program, where I could continue developing printable solar cell technology while exploring fundamental questions about energy conversion at the molecular level. The decision meant 5 more years of student stipends instead of immediate financial comfort, but it also meant unlimited access to cutting-edge facilities and the freedom to pursue research that could transform entire industries. The announcement of my graduate school plans generated mixed reactions from MIT classmates. Some seemed relieved that I'd chosen academia over industry, viewing it as validation of their own graduate school decisions. Others questioned why I'd turned down such lucrative, immediate opportunities. "You could have been financially set for life," Marcus pointed out during a study group session. "PhD programs are brutal, and there's no guarantee your research will lead anywhere commercial." "But that's exactly why I need to do it," I replied. Industry research focuses on incremental improvements to existing technologies. I want to discover completely new approaches to energy conversion that don't exist yet. My final months at MIT were bittersweet. The institution that had once seemed impossibly elite now felt like home. Professors who'd initially intimidated me had become collaborators and friends. Classmates who'd questioned my community college background now sought my advice on research strategies and graduate school applications. The transformation was most evident during my senior thesis defense. The examination committee included professors from chemical engineering, materials science, and physics, experts who'd published hundreds of papers and advised countless graduate students. As I presented my research on bio-inspired photovoltaic systems, I felt completely comfortable defending my methodology and discussing future research directions. "Your work represents exactly the kind of interdisciplinary thinking we hope to see from MIT graduates," commented Professor Williams after my presentation. "You've combined insights from biology, chemistry, and engineering to create something genuinely novel." But perhaps the most meaningful moment came during the questions and answers session. A professor asked about the inspiration for my research approach, and I found myself describing the resource constraints that had shaped my work at community college. "Limited equipment forced me to think creatively about synthesis methods," I explained. "When you can't afford specialized instruments, you develop unconventional techniques that sometimes prove superior to standard approaches." The committee, members exchanged glances of recognition. My community college experience, which had once seemed like a disadvantage, was now viewed as a unique source of innovation and resourcefulness. As graduation approached, I reflected on the extraordinary journey from community college doubt to MIT confidence. The shy teenager who'd worried about belonging at an elite institution had become a researcher whose work was cited in scientific journals and featured in technology magazines. The path hadn't been linear or predictable. Every major decision had required choosing uncertainty over security, challenge over comfort. But each choice had led to opportunities that exceeded my wildest expectations when I'd first walked onto Riverside Community College's campus 4 years earlier. Standing in my cap and gown on MIT's graduation day, surrounded by family members who'd traveled across the country to celebrate my achievement, I understood that success wasn't about proving doubters wrong. It was about staying true to your potential even when others couldn't see it. 2 years into my PhD program at Stanford, the email that would change everything arrived on a Wednesday morning. I was reviewing spectroscopy data in the lab when my phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Elena Rodriguez at the International Energy Agency in Paris. Your printable solar cell technology has been selected for the Global Clean Energy Innovation Challenge, the message read. We'd like to invite you to present your research to world leaders at the United Nations Climate Summit in New York. This could be the platform to scale your technology globally. I read the message 3 times before the magnitude sank in. The UN Climate Summit was where international policy got made, where billion-dollar investments were decided, where technologies transitioned from laboratory curiosities to solutions that could impact millions of lives. My hands were shaking as I called my parents with the news. Ruth answered on the second ring, and I could hear the familiar sounds of the dental office in the background. Mom, I need to tell you something incredible, I began, struggling to keep my voice steady. What's wrong? You sound upset, she replied, immediately shifting into protective mode. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. I've been invited to speak at the United Nations about my research. They want to showcase my solar cell technology as a solution for global energy access. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. Then I heard Ruth calling to Aaron in the background, her voice filled with excitement and disbelief. Aaron! Aaron, come here! Diane's been invited to the United Nations. Within minutes, I was on speakerphone with both parents, trying to explain the significance of the invitation while they peppered me with questions about logistics, security, and whether they could attend. Of course you can attend, I said, laughing at their enthusiasm. I want you both there. This moment belongs to our entire family. The preparation for the UN presentation consumed the next 6 weeks. My research had to be translated into language that policymakers could understand, with clear explanations of costs, timelines, and implementation strategies. I worked with communication specialists to develop visual presentations that would resonate with audiences ranging from heads of state to venture capitalists. But the technical preparation was only part of the challenge. Speaking at the United Nations meant representing not just my research, but the potential for young scientists to contribute to solving humanity's most pressing problems. The weight of that responsibility was both terrifying and exhilarating. Dr. Walsh flew out from MIT to help with the final preparations. As we rehearsed my presentation in Stanford's auditorium, she offered insights that went beyond technical accuracy. Remember, you're not just presenting research, she said. You're telling the story of how persistence and innovation can overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. Your journey from community college to the UN stage represents hope for young people worldwide who are told their dreams are too big. The flight to New York was surreal. I'd traveled internationally for conferences before, but never as a featured speaker at an event that would shape global energy policy. My parents sat beside me on the plane, both wearing their best clothes and carrying small cameras to document every moment. I still can't believe this is happening, Aaron admitted as we approached JFK Airport. 4 years ago, I thought you were making a mistake with community college. Now you're about to address world leaders about technology you invented. The UN building was more impressive in person than in photographs. Security was intense, with multiple checkpoints and credential verifications. As we walked through the corridors lined with flags from 193 nations, I thought about all the decisions that had led to this moment. The community college choice that my family had questioned. The transfer to MIT that seemed impossible. The research, projects that consumed countless late nights. The graduate school decision that prioritized intellectual curiosity over immediate financial rewards. Each step had seemed uncertain at the time, but together they formed a path to this extraordinary opportunity. My presentation was scheduled for the second day of the summit, in a session focused on breakthrough technologies for developing nations. The audience included energy ministers, heads of environmental agencies, representatives from major corporations, and climate activists from around the world. As I walked onto the stage, I spotted my parents in the audience, their faces beaming with pride. Aaron was recording everything on his phone while Ruth sat perfectly still, as if afraid that moving might somehow disrupt the moment. Distinguished delegates, fellow researchers, and advocates for clean energy, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the assembly hall. 5 years ago, I was a community college student working with basic laboratory equipment to develop better plastic materials. Today, I want to share how that humble beginning led to technology that could provide clean energy access to 3 billion people who currently lack reliable electricity. The presentation flowed smoothly. I explained how printable solar cells could be manufactured using existing printing infrastructure, making them affordable for developing nations. I demonstrated the flexibility and durability that made them suitable for harsh environments. Most importantly, I showed economic projections indicating that this technology could provide electricity at costs lower than fossil fuel alternatives. The response was immediate and overwhelming. During the question and answer session, ministers from African nations asked about implementation timelines. Representatives from major foundations inquired about funding requirements. Technology companies wanted to discuss licensing agreements. But the most impactful moment came when Dr. Fatima Al-Zahra, an energy researcher from Bangladesh, approached me after the presentation. "Your technology could transform my country," she said, tears forming in her eyes. 60 million people in rural Bangladesh lack access to reliable electricity. Your printable solar cells could be manufactured locally and installed by communities themselves. This isn't just innovation. It's liberation. Her words crystallized why I'd chosen research over immediate financial rewards. Industry positions would have provided personal comfort, but academic research had led to discoveries that could improve millions of lives. The decision to pursue PhD studies had connected my work to global challenges that transcended individual success. The summit generated commitments for over $2 billion in funding for clean energy technologies, with $400 million specifically allocated to scaling printable solar cell production. Major development banks announced programs to subsidize implementation in developing nations. Technology companies signed agreements to establish manufacturing facilities in Africa, Asia, and South America. Within 48 hours, my research had transformed from academic project to global initiative. The shy community college student who'd once worried about fitting in was now at the center of international efforts to democratize energy access. The media attention was unprecedented. CNN featured my story as an example of American innovation addressing global challenges. The BBC interviewed me about the potential for young researchers to contribute to climate solutions. Scientific American published a cover story titled, "From Community College to Global Impact: How Unconventional Paths Lead to Breakthrough Innovation." But perhaps the most meaningful coverage came from a small newspaper in my hometown. The Riverside Tribune ran a front-page story about their local girl who changed the world, featuring quotes from Mrs. Patterson and other teachers who'd believed in my potential when others couldn't see it. Diane always asked questions that went beyond textbook answers, Mrs. Patterson told the reporter. She wanted to understand how science could solve real problems. Now she's doing exactly that on the world's biggest stage. The months following the UN summit brought a whirlwind of opportunities. Universities offered faculty positions despite my incomplete PhD. Venture capital firms proposed partnerships to commercialize the technology. Government agencies requested my input on renewable energy policy. I chose to complete my doctorate while simultaneously launching a nonprofit organization focused on implementing printable solar cells in underserved communities. The nonprofit, called Global Energy Access Initiative, partnered with local organizations in 12 countries to establish manufacturing and installation programs. The first major deployment took place in rural Kenya, where we worked with women's cooperatives to produce and install solar cells in villages that had never had reliable electricity. The printed panels powered LED lighting, cell phone charging stations, and small refrigeration units for storing medicines. The success in Kenya attracted attention from other African nations, leading to expansion programs in Tanzania, Uganda, and Ghana. Each deployment created local jobs, reduced dependence on fossil fuels, and provided communities with tools for economic development. My parents became frequent travelers, visiting project sites and documenting the real-world impact of research that had begun in a community college laboratory. Aaron, who'd once questioned the value of higher education, now spoke at business conferences about supporting innovative thinking in unexpected places. "I almost destroyed my daughter's dreams because I couldn't see beyond my own limitations," he told the audience. The lesson isn't just about believing in young people. It's about recognizing that breakthrough innovations can come from anywhere if we create the right opportunities. Ruth started a scholarship fund for community college students interested in STEM fields, providing financial support and mentorship for students following unconventional educational paths. The fund had awarded over 200 scholarships within its first 3 years, enabling students to pursue research opportunities that might otherwise be inaccessible. As I approached the completion of my PhD, I reflected on the extraordinary journey, from community college doubt to global recognition. The path had been filled with moments when success seemed impossible, when financial constraints and family skepticism made ambitious dreams feel unrealistic. But each obstacle had become an opportunity for growth. The community college experience had taught resourcefulness and creativity. The family doubt had motivated unwavering determination. The financial limitations had fostered appreciation for every educational opportunity. The technology that emerged from this journey was now powering schools in remote villages, enabling small businesses in developing economies, and providing clean energy access to communities that traditional infrastructure couldn't reach. Research that began as a student project had become a catalyst for global change. My doctoral defense was scheduled for a Friday afternoon in Stanford's engineering building. The examining committee included professors who'd become mentors, collaborators, who'd shared the research journey, and external experts who'd followed the technology's development from academic curiosity to worldwide implementation. As I presented 5 years of research findings, I felt completely confident in my methodology, results, and conclusions. The nervous community college transfer student who'd once worried about belonging at MIT had evolved into a researcher capable of defending complex scientific work before the world's leading experts. "Your research demonstrates exceptional scientific rigor combined with remarkable real-world impact," commented Professor Martinez during the examination. "It's rare to see work that advances fundamental knowledge while simultaneously addressing urgent global challenges." The defense concluded with unanimous approval and congratulations from committee members who recognized both the scientific excellence and humanitarian significance of the work. I'd officially earned my PhD from Stanford, but more importantly, I'd proven that transformative research could emerge from the most unexpected educational journeys. Standing outside the building after my successful defense, I called my parents to share the news. Their pride was evident even through the phone connection, their voices filled with emotion as they processed the magnitude of what their daughter had accomplished. "We're so proud of you," Ruth said, her voice breaking slightly. "Not just for the PhD or the UN speech or any of the accolades. We're proud that you stayed true to your vision even when we couldn't see it ourselves. You've shown the world that intelligence and determination can overcome any obstacle," Aaron added. "But more than that, you've used your success to help others who face similar challenges. That's the kind of person we always hoped you'd become. As I looked toward the future, I saw unlimited possibilities. Faculty positions at major universities, opportunities to expand global energy access programs, potential to influence policy decisions that could accelerate clean energy adoption worldwide. But regardless of which specific path I chose, I knew that my journey from community college to global impact had established principles that would guide every future decision. Choose challenge over comfort. Pursue meaningful problems over easy solutions. Support others who dream bigger than their circumstances suggest is possible. The girl who'd been told to be realistic about her ambitions had proven that the most unrealistic dreams sometimes lead to the most extraordinary realities. The path from community college to the United Nations stage wasn't just about personal success. It was about demonstrating that innovation and determination can emerge from anywhere, transforming not just individual lives, but the entire world. Standing there in the California sunshine, PhD diploma in hand, and knowing that my technology was bringing electricity to villages across 3 continents, I understood that this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a lifetime dedicated to proving that brilliant solutions can come from the most unexpected places. Created by people who refuse to accept limitations, others try to impose on their dreams. 5 years later, as I write, this from my office at the Global Energy Institute that I founded, the impact continues to expand in ways I never imagined. Our printable solar cell technology now powers over 50,000 homes across 23 countries. The manufacturing cooperatives we established have created jobs for thousands of people, particularly women in rural communities who had limited economic opportunities. The ripple effects extended far beyond energy access. In Bangladesh, Dr. Alzara's predictions proved accurate. Reliable electricity enabled children to study after dark, improving literacy rates in participating villages by 40%. Small businesses flourished when entrepreneurs could operate refrigeration units, charge electronic devices, and work extended hours under LED lighting. In Nigeria, we partnered with local universities to establish the first community-based solar cell manufacturing program in West Africa. Students learned advanced materials science while producing panels for their own communities. The program became a model for technology transfer that respected local expertise while introducing cutting-edge innovations. Perhaps most remarkably, some of these student manufacturers began developing their own improvements to our original design. A team in Lagos created a hybrid version that incorporated locally available materials, reducing costs by 30% while maintaining efficiency. Their innovation was so impressive that we incorporated their modifications into our global manufacturing protocols. "You've created something more valuable than just a technology," observed Dr. Kofi Mensah, Ghana's Minister of Energy, during a recent site visit. "You've created a system that empowers communities to become innovators themselves rather than just consumers of external solutions." This philosophy of collaborative innovation became central to everything we developed. Rather than treating developing nations as markets for Western technology, we established partnerships where local researchers contributed equally to advancing the science. Some of our most significant breakthroughs emerged from these collaborations. The recognition continued accumulating in unexpected ways. Time magazine named me to their list of 100 most influential people under 30. The MacArthur Foundation awarded me a Genius Grant for revolutionizing energy access through inclusive innovation. Most meaningfully, the United Nations appointed me as a special advisor on sustainable technology, a position that allowed me to influence policy decisions affecting billions of people. But success also brought new challenges. Managing a global organization required skills I'd never developed during my academic training: financial management, international law, cross-cultural communication. These competencies weren't covered in any chemistry curriculum. I had to learn business strategy while maintaining scientific rigor, master diplomatic protocols while preserving research integrity. The learning curve was steep and sometimes overwhelming. During particularly difficult periods, I found myself calling Mrs. Patterson, my former high school teacher who'd first suggested community college. Now in her 70s, she'd become an informal advisor whose perspective always helped clarify complex decisions. "You're facing the same challenge you encountered at MIT," she reminded me during one particularly stressful conversation. "You're in an environment where you're supposed to feel inadequate, but your unconventional background is actually your greatest strength. Trust the problem-solving skills that got you this far." Her advice proved prescient. The resourcefulness I'd developed at community college, the determination forged through family skepticism, the scientific creativity nurtured at MIT and Stanford. These qualities proved perfectly suited for navigating the complexities of international development. Worked out one of the most unexpected developments was the transformation of Riverside Community College itself. My success had attracted national attention to their transfer programs, leading to increased funding and new partnerships with major universities. Dr. Kim, my former chemistry professor, was promoted to Dean of Sciences and began developing research programs that rivaled four-year institutions. Diane's journey proved that excellence can emerge anywhere, Dr. Kim explained to visiting journalists. "We've restructured our entire approach to emphasize research opportunities and real-world problem solving. Community colleges don't have to be stepping stones. They can be launching pads for global impact." The college established the Diane Mitchell Center for Renewable Energy Research, a facility where students could work on cutting-edge projects while completing their general education requirements. The irony wasn't lost on me. The institution, my family had initially viewed as settling for less, was now pioneering educational approaches that traditional universities were trying to emulate. My hometown had also changed dramatically. Riverside's mayor commissioned a mural celebrating local achievements, featuring my UN presentation alongside other community success stories. The high school where I'd first learned chemistry now offered advanced STEM courses taught in partnership with the community college. Young people who might have once felt limited by their circumstances could now see clear pathways to extraordinary opportunities. During a recent visit home, I encountered several students who'd been inspired by my story to pursue unconventional educational paths. Maria Gonzalez, a high school senior, had chosen community college over expensive four-year programs, specifically to follow the transfer route I'd pioneered. "My family thinks I'm crazy to turn down university scholarships," she confided. "But you proved that community college can lead anywhere. I want to study environmental engineering and work on climate solutions like you did." Her words reminded me of my own teenage conversations with skeptical relatives. The cycle was repeating, but with one crucial difference. Now there was proof that ambitious dreams could be achieved through strategic thinking rather than conventional paths. The most profound changes occurred within my own family. Aaron had become a passionate advocate for educational innovation, speaking at conferences about the dangers of limiting young people's aspirations. His presentations drew from our family's experience, honestly acknowledging his initial doubts, while emphasizing the importance of supporting children's ambitions even when parents couldn't envision the possibilities. I learned that being realistic often means accepting artificial limitations, he told audiences of parents and educators. My daughter's success taught me that the most realistic thing we can do is encourage young people to pursue their highest aspirations with intelligence and determination. Ruth's scholarship program had evolved into a national foundation supporting community college students in STEM fields. The foundation provided not just financial assistance, but mentorship networks connecting students with professionals in their fields of interest. Over 1,500 students had received support, with many going on to prestigious universities and impactful careers. Diane showed us that one person's success can create pathways for countless others, Ruth explained during a foundation fundraising dinner. Every scholarship we award is an investment in the next generation of innovators who might change the world in ways we can't yet imagine. The Foundation's impact extended beyond individual scholarships. By tracking alumni outcomes and sharing success stories, it was building a database proving the effectiveness of community college pathways for students interested in advanced STEM careers. This evidence was influencing policy discussions about educational funding and college accessibility. As I reflected on the 10-year journey from community college doubt to global recognition, I realized that the most important lesson wasn't about personal achievement. It was about the power of systems thinking, understanding how individual choices create ripple effects that can transform entire communities. My decision to attend community college had initially seemed like a compromise born of financial necessity. But it had led to research opportunities, mentorship relationships, and skill development that wouldn't have been available through traditional paths. Those experiences shaped not just my career, but my approach to problem-solving and collaboration. The skepticism I'd encountered from family and peers had been painful at the time, but it had also motivated the relentless work ethic and determination that enabled extraordinary achievements. Even the financial constraints that had seemed like obstacles had fostered creativity and resourcefulness that became professional advantages. Most importantly, each stage of the journey had been characterized by finding mentors who believed in possibilities others couldn't see. Mrs. Patterson's suggestion of community college when university seemed impossible. Dr. Kim's research opportunities when I was just another transfer student. Dr. Walsh's invitation to join advanced projects when I was still proving myself. Professor Morrison's encouragement when MIT seemed beyond reach. These relationships revealed a truth that became central to my own mentoring philosophy. Transformative opportunities often come from people who recognize potential in unconventional packages. The most impactful thing I could do was become that person for others, someone who saw possibilities where others saw limitations. This realization led to the establishment of the Global Mentorship Initiative, a program connecting young researchers from developing nations with established scientists in their fields. Rather than traditional academic exchanges that required expensive travel and lengthy visa processes, we created virtual collaboration networks where emerging scientists could contribute to cutting-edge research while building skills and connections. The program's first cohort included 200 young researchers from 40 countries. Many were working in institutions with limited resources, facing skepticism about their potential contributions to global science. But their fresh perspectives and intimate understanding of local challenges led to innovations that purely academic approaches might never have discovered. One participant, Dr. Amara Kone from Côte d'Ivoire, developed a method for producing solar cell components using agricultural waste from cocoa processing. Her innovation not only reduced manufacturing costs, but created additional income streams for farmers while addressing waste management challenges. The breakthrough emerged specifically because she understood both advanced materials, science, and local agricultural realities. Diane's program taught me that being from a developing nation isn't a limitation. It's a unique perspective that can lead to solutions others might miss, Dr. Kone explained during a recent conference presentation. When you understand problems firsthand, you approach them differently than someone who only knows them theoretically. These collaborations were yielding scientific breakthroughs while simultaneously building research capacity in regions traditionally excluded from cutting-edge innovation. The approach aligned perfectly with my core belief that the best solutions emerge when diverse perspectives tackle complex challenges collaboratively. As I prepare for the next chapter of this journey, I'm launching the Institute for Inclusive Innovation, a research center focused on developing technologies specifically designed to address global inequality. The institute will bring together researchers from community colleges, elite universities, and international institutions to work on projects ranging from affordable medical devices to sustainable agriculture systems. The goal isn't just to create new technologies, but to demonstrate alternative models for how innovation happens. By centering collaboration over competition, accessibility over exclusivity, and real-world impact over academic prestige, we hope to inspire a new generation of researchers who view science as a tool for social justice. Looking back on this extraordinary decade, I'm struck by how many times success depended on making decisions that seemed risky or unconventional at the time. Choosing community college over debt, transferring to MIT despite skepticism, pursuing graduate school instead of immediate financial security, founding a nonprofit rather than joining established institutions. Each choice involved uncertainty and potential failure, but they also opened pathways that more conventional decisions would have foreclosed. The lesson wasn't about taking reckless risks, but about thoughtfully evaluating opportunities based on long-term potential rather than immediate comfort or social expectations. Today, as I work with young researchers facing similar decisions, I encourage them to trust their intelligence while remaining open to unconventional pathways. The future belongs to people who can think creatively about complex problems, who can bridge different disciplines and cultures, who can turn constraints into catalysts for innovation. The girl who started at community college and ended up addressing the United Nations didn't succeed despite her unconventional path. She succeeded because of it. Every obstacle became an opportunity for growth. Every limitation forced creative solutions. Every moment of doubt motivated greater determination. This story isn't really about one person's achievement. It's about the potential that exists in every young person who dreams bigger than their circumstances suggest is possible. It's about the transformative power of education when it's pursued with purpose and supported by mentors who recognize potential in unexpected places. Most importantly, it's about the responsibility that comes with success, the obligation to create pathways for others who face similar challenges, to prove that extraordinary achievements can emerge from ordinary beginnings, and to demonstrate that the most powerful innovations often come from people who refuse to accept that certain dreams are unrealistic. The journey from community college to global impact continues, with new challenges and opportunities emerging constantly. But the foundation remains the same: curiosity, determination, and an unwavering belief that intelligence and hard work can overcome any obstacle. These principles, learned through years of proving doubters wrong, will guide whatever comes next in this ongoing adventure of discovery and impact. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.